Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. I am Chris Piper, Superintendent for Troy City Schools, and appreciate you being with us. As you all know, if you're joining us tonight, we are in the middle, well, hopefully towards the end of a building project that will see us consolidate our district. Particularly, the topic for tonight is redistricting as we redistrict or as we reconsolidate from 6 current elementary buildings to 3. This is an important part of this process and one that we hope to engage our community with, hear your feedback, and create a good plan moving forward for our district. So again, I'm Chris Piper. I'll be helping out tonight answering some questions. In just a moment, you're going to meet Matthew Cropper. Matthew is with Cropper Geographic Information Systems, and they will be assisting our district through this process to get us ready to occupy our new buildings. So with that, again, thank you for joining us, and I will hand it over to Matthew.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you everybody for participating in tonight's webinar. Before I get started, I wanted to talk about a few housekeeping things regarding the webinar. We are going to have a Q&A period after this presentation, and you'll notice on your little Zoom toolbar that there is a Q&A button. On that button, if you click that, you could type in any question that you have. And some of the questions may be answered through the course of this presentation. But if not, we will address and look at over the questions at the end of the presentation and answer as many questions as we can this evening. We anticipate this meeting to go no longer than an hour, but if we do finish before then, we will certainly adjourn before that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we are Cropper GIS Consulting. We are working with the Troy City Schools on this particular effort, and this is our expertise in our profession. We are K-12 planners. We work with school districts all across the United States. Our specialties include school redistricting, which is what we're here to do with your community on this project. We do a lot of facility planning and housing and yield studies and enrollment forecasting work. But we're here to focus on the redistricting project. I am Matthew Cropper, president of the company. Our Cropper GIS has been around this is our 21st year in business. And also Sean Dowling and Connor Cropper are analysts who have been working with us on this project. This is just to give you a little bit of background on some of the projects in the state of Ohio that we've worked on, districts that we've worked with. We've also worked with districts everywhere from 3,000 to over 150,000 students across the United States. And so we bring a lot of expertise in doing our work with districts on a daily basis. And we bring to the table a lot of that, sharing that perspective on how other communities have addressed challenges and how they go about doing this kind of work. We also have a strong background in GIS, which stands for Geographic Information Systems. And that's the tool that we use to help make accurate, informed decisions in working with data. And it's a mapping system that allows us to really look at data from a geographic perspective and really make accurate estimates as we work through redistricting. So the agenda for tonight is to go over some of the project. We don't have any option maps to share with you this evening. This is really the formal kickoff for the redistricting effort with the public. We're going to review our timeline and our objectives and our criteria. And we also have a website that we built that we're going to orient you with and show you, give you a little walkthrough on the website. And there's a lot of key pieces of information in there, some background data, a feedback form where you can provide input at any particular time, an online map, and a lot of the information that we're sharing with you tonight is going to be posted on there as well. Then we'll talk about next steps when we're done with that. So as Superintendent Piper said, why are we here? Why do we need to do this redistricting project? Well, the district is currently in the process of constructing, doing a major building project where they're going from 4 K-5 schools, and then there are 2 schools that are in a paired model with K-2, 3, 5. So that's 6 total buildings that serve your elementary kids right now. And you have 1 6th-grade center. In fall 2027, the district is moving to 3 K through 4 buildings in your district, and then you're going to have 1 5th and 6th grade center. So as you can imagine, going from 5 zones down to 3, there's a need to make sure that we balance utilization of all of the schools and make sure that there's an equitable amount of space in each school and that the schools are efficiently serving your community. This is just a depiction of your current schools. You could see on the left, your school zones and your schools are there. And so this is before any construction is happening and at how your buildings are operating right now. Also, you can see there's a data table here that shows the enrollment um, as of this year. And this shows you basically utilization data. What's the total enrollment? What is the utilization of the school, which is the total enrollment divided by the capacity. And you can see the capacity data on the table as well. You'll also see something common in our tables in what we have now, but also when we start to share options in a month or two, you'll see the green, yellow, and red scales, and that shows you how close a school's utilization is as it compares to the total K-5 utilization in the district. So you could see there are imbalances, and that's what we use the color scale for, to kind of identify and visualize where there are imbalances as it relates to the total district average. Some schools are on the low side currently of utilization, others on the high side. And as the building plan goes underway, and once these buildings are in place, you'll see that the total enrollment compared to the capacity of the new schools has the new buildings operating around 92% as a whole. And that is actually a good sign because as for elementary schools, you can run an elementary school close to 100% and not have it be what's considered overcrowded. This is just basically tells us that the district, as they're migrating to their building plan, that they're operating their schools more efficiently with this plan and getting rid of some excess space that they have. You can see the map on the left shows you the 3 elementary schools shown as red squares, North, East, and West Elementary School, and South Intermediate School is located in the southern part of the district. There are no boundaries yet for these schools shown here because we have not gotten there yet, and that's going to be something that we plan to share with you at our next public information session. So, as part of our process, I'm going to give you a little walkthrough of how we do things. We were hired by the district to help develop supporting materials, facilitate meetings like this, and also meetings with other stakeholders. We do value transparency in our work, and so we always work to make sure that the public can see through the window and see what's happening, and they can follow the process so that there are no big surprises when it comes time to recommend an option to the school board. We leverage our expertise, like I mentioned, and ultimately work towards recommending a redistricting plan that will hold for a good amount of time. As we look and start to evaluate moving communities and households one way or the other, we always like to focus on a set of criteria. And think of these as the rules to follow. If we consider moving an area to one school or another, or a neighborhood or a street to one school or another, we always ask ourselves, are we adhering to these criteria as best as possible? These criteria include balancing school facility utilization, trying to establish contiguous zones, so that's having one zone per school, and try to avoid having segmented or separate zones for one school. And what we want to avoid here is going in and picking up an apartment complex out of the middle of a zone and having it sent to another school, or a neighborhood or subdivision having sort of a satellite area that's farther away from their closest school that's being zoned to a different building. We always focus on proximity, trying to establish zones that assign students to as close to their home as possible, if possible. And that also aligns with bus efficiency and transportation of students and maximizing that and the efficiency of that. So if students are able to attend schools closer to their home, that reduces the amount of time and money spent on gas and school bus transportation. And we also want to use major roads and natural boundaries to define attendance zones whenever possible. Other secondary criteria that we are measuring and looking at include minimizing the impact on students, accounting for future growth, and considering economic diversity. One of the things that you'll see, and as I orient the district as we look at options, is that no plan is going to be perfect. There is going to be some element of a plan even the recommendation that may give you a little bit of heartburn, and that it doesn't perfectly adhere to these criteria. I always say the best plan will be one that adheres to these criteria as a whole as best as possible. Knowing that if we focus only on one element of these criteria, we start to deviate further from the others. Like if we only focused on proximity and assigned every student to this closest school to their home, we would end up with an imbalance in school utilization, and maybe even need to create non-contiguous zones. So these criteria are things that I would also encourage you as members of the public to evaluate. And as you start to look at options down the road, I will revisit these again at that time. But I would always encourage the public to take a look through the lens of the criteria as you assess and evaluate different options when they do come about. So yes, this is basically beware of focusing on only on one criteria. Think of the big picture and one that adheres to all of the criteria as best as possible. Talking about the stakeholders, we have a lot of different groups that we're working with to get feedback from, and as we work towards a recommendation. We're working with an internal planning team that's made up of district officials. There's even a school board member that sits on that. People from transportation from the district, people from the district that are in charge of programs and who know where the programs are located and what programs are offered and things like that. And then we have the administrative team behind Superintendent Piper. And this is the internal planning team that we work with. We meet with them every other week and we evaluate different components in preparation for meetings like this and also working through options. After this public info session, we will start to get into the options discussion with the internal planning team. We're also working with the Public Advisory Committee. It's made up of community representatives, people who are affiliated with different schools, who are from your community. And think of this group, the Public Advisory Committee, as a focus group, and that we're meeting with them and sharing information with them prior to sharing it with the public as a whole. So we already met with this Public Advisory Committee one time as we prepared for the public information session tonight, and they gave us input and insights into some of the things that we're sharing with you and some of the materials that we've developed. But we will continue to work with the Public Advisory Committee through the course of the study as well. We meet with them 3 times through this project. And then the general public is very important, as important as any of the other stakeholders, in that we are giving you the opportunity to see what's happening and also giving you different methods and tools to be able to learn more about the data and also provide feedback. So the general public is very important, and we're meeting with you tonight, and we are meeting with you one other time before we deliver a recommendation. The superintendent is more of a high level and sort of making sure that things are operating as planned and as scoped, and also keeping communication with the school board so they are briefed on anything that's happening through the process. We are the consultants, as I mentioned, facilitating the work and working with all of the stakeholders here. Finally, the school board is really the final say on any redistricting plan here. So even when we start to share options down the road, nothing is going to be final until the school board approves a plan. So I always say everything is draft until it's approved by the school board, and that is their primary role in this project. So this is our timeline. As you could see, we have been working since May and putting things together and developing materials for the process. We meeting with the internal planning team a couple times a month, and you can see our public advisory committee meetings are here. and we have our next public advisory committee meeting at sort of the end of September. And we are here on the 27th doing our first public information session. We have another public information session on October the 8th, and that's going to be on site. We will be in town, and we will have a sort of a gallery walk for that for that public info session, where we'll do a presentation to share our work, share the draft options, and then we'll have maps and data on easels and invite the public to come look at the figures that are on easels and have conversations with the IPT, the internal planning team, and consultants. There'll be a survey that's also built for that second public info session that's going to run pretty much to the end of October. And then we are meeting with the Public Advisory Committee one last time at the end of October to share feedback that we've received through the public info session, and as we work towards a final recommendation. Those final recommendations are planned to be presented to the board on November 9th, and then the board is expected to take action before Christmas on December 14th. So as we work through our process, we go through a number of different phases. We collect data, we put that data together into our mapping system so that we can have everything in our GIS mapping system, and we're also building data sets for our planning process. Then we start to work on baseline options, and we built a background report for you guys to see, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. And then we're now pretty much at phase 4, where we're going to start evaluating options, kicking off this process with the public, and starting engagement with the public. And so making you aware of what's going on so that you can follow things. So in our first phase in collecting data, we get data from the school district. We have all of the capacity information. We also collected student information from the district so that we could map out the students, and we know with our GIS system how many students live on any particular street in any particular subdivision. And within that data, we can count students in a subdivision or in a neighborhood and know how many kids there are there, what schools do they go to, what grade levels are they, and that helps us really have informed information as we move a boundary line one way or the other. The county and city have been really good in providing data for us, such as planned housing information, and then we also get a lot of base mapping data like property lines, roads, and all of those other geographic features, subdivisions and neighborhoods, and all of that kind of information is stuff that we've obtained from the county and the city through this process. So we take that data, we put it into our mapping system, convert data into GIS so that we can start analyzing things efficiently. We also take and put things into what we call planning blocks, so that we summarize student data by what we call planning blocks, and think of them as pieces of a puzzle that are on your map. We break up every single attendance area into small building blocks, and then within each of those planning blocks, you know how many kids live in that area. And that helps people, including you, to understand how many students live in different areas of the district, and eventually, when we start showing options, maybe you can understand why we move one area versus another area, and as it relates to how many students are in these planning blocks. We've developed an online map in preparation for this, and I'll give you a little preview of the online map here in a little bit once I introduce the website to you. But this is a very useful tool that shows the current boundaries right now. You'll see that you can also go on here. This is a site that you can use on any device, any phone or computer or laptop or tablet. It works, and you can turn on and off different layers. And as you zoom in, more data starts to show up. So the more you zoom in, you'll start to see property lines. You'll even see address numbers, and then and you can also turn on the planning block outlines, which is shown in the top right image here. And those black and white dashed outlines show you what the planning blocks look like. There's a planning block ID for each planning block. And I would encourage the public, when you start looking at this, if you have a comment or a concern, you can tell us what planning block you live in, or you can just tell us what subdivision you live in or what area of the city you live in, and we can hone in on that area. but those planning blocks help us really understand and hone in on the specific area of discussion. And below that planning block ID number shows you the number of students that live in each of those blocks. So, working through scenarios and also our background report. Background report is something that we have developed as a reference guide for redistricting, and there's a lot of material in there that shows a lot of the stuff that we're sharing with you tonight, the criteria, our objectives, the timeline, and there's some maps in there, and then even some those enrollment and capacity data. We also include some of our methods and how we develop things. And so the background report is a really good reference for you guys to look at. And if you have any questions, like how big is the new school going to be, or this school, you can go look at it. What's the current enrollment of these schools? You know, you can look at that, and what do the planning blocks look like? That information is in there, or criteria and objectives. All that information is in the background report for a starting point for you to kind of understand what's going on, and then not to speculate, to use information for your benefit. So the fourth phase, like I said, this is where we are right now, and working with the planning team and the public advisory committee, working with you on our first public engagement opportunity for this public info session one, and then we'll have one more leading to our recommendation for the school board. It's important to note that as we work through this, we do want to hear from you. We want to we are always looking at the feedback form and information that's coming from the public. And we take all that information in and we consider that with an eye on the criteria. But one of the things to note, as when we do get into options development, it's not going to be a public vote per se, and this option gets the most number of votes. So this is the option that we're going to recommend. It's more trying to glean constructive feedback from you as it relates to it, better adherence to those criteria. And that's all information that we will get from you through the first and second public info session, as well as our survey that's gonna come out at the second public info session. We do have a feedback form on our website that's up there now. It's just asks you some simple questions. What school are you affiliated with? What is your email address in case we need to follow up with you? And then an open-ended feedback window where you can just type in any of your thoughts as it relates to the redistricting. This is just the initial feedback form that's there before we get into options to give you the opportunity to tell us what you think and ask any questions. And this is how we communicate with the public. It's the best to centralize and streamline this feedback into one source that we can share with the internal planning team and the public advisory committee and everybody else. And so it's important to take a look at that on the webpage when we do get there. And here it is. It's tcsredistricting.com. It has all this information on there. And I'm going to go ahead and toggle real quick and do a little preview of the website here. Okay. So this is your webpage, tcsredistricting.com. It shows you basically the background and objectives, like I've discussed. We have our timeline here, and then also there are different buttons or pages on the website that we've built so far. Overview of the project. We have some maps that show you just some initial maps that we've developed. And when we get into options, we'll put the maps on here. We have an online map. So this is the web map. So if I click on this, you'll see it pulls up your district. If you're using this from a phone, this left side may not be showing. You'll see a little arrow on the left side. You can tap that with your finger and it expands the layers. And you can click on this and you can turn on and off different layers. So right now we just have the elementary boundaries and the planning blocks. When we do get to options sharing time and second public info session, we'll have the current boundaries, and then option 1, 2, 3, or however many options there are that we're sharing with you at that time. But as you zoom in on the map, you start to see more data and more information starts to show up. So as you go in closer, you start to see labels start to pop up. You'll see even property lines start to show up. And this is all data from the county. It's all public information. And even you get far enough, it even shows you address data, like the address points, addresses for each property. So this is stuff that we use as a tool for our redistricting to better understand the geography of the district, and then also starting to look at comparing options when they're ready. You'll see if I turn on the planning blocks layer here, you'll see planning blocks start to show up, and it shows you that planning block ID and the number of students living within each planning block. So these planning blocks were developed basically, for starters, we use the current attendance areas as the dividing lines for the planning blocks, and then we go in farther. And so our what we try to focus on is if a planning block moves, it moves. If an area moves, it moves together. Now, some of these may split a subdivision or a neighborhood into two planning blocks. That doesn't mean that we intend to divide your neighborhood. It's just intended for us to have a better understanding of the number of students within different areas of within your district. So we will keep them focused on that, on the criteria. One of those criteria are making sure that you like look at major roads and things like that. One of the key parts of that criteria are to not draw the line down residential streets if at all possible. Try to use major roads and water features, whatever it may be, as dividing lines if at all possible. When we draw lines, and don't draw the line down a residential street so that communities are split, and to more than one school. So I encourage you to take a look at this. There's also, you can, if you get in here, you turn on planning blocks. You can also go to base maps, and if, say, the roads are in the way, some of the other features like this gets busy, you can go over here and click on satellite and turn off the road labels, and you can go back to the hybrid. The hybrid is what we like the best, but you can look at other stuff here if you just want to look at the street layer. But we have a good street layer for you on this map. So this is the online map, and we look forward to putting some options on here once we have them ready. We also have our general feedback form here. So this is the form that gets you basically lets you type in your information and share any feedback. So this is all live right now, tcsredistricting.com. I'm previewing the live site. We have our background report here that you can click on, and it opens up the actual document for the background report, and it has all this information like I've talked about in here for reference for you guys to see. We also have materials that we shared with the Public Advisory Committee at the August 11th, the first PAC meeting. And so we put in with, full transparency, just sharing this information with you so you could see what we shared with the Public Advisory Committee at their first meeting. And then we have our materials for tonight's meeting here on this page. In addition to that, you'll see some useful links here. We have some other things that we've put up here just for quick reference for you. It's all just basically quicker links, links that reference things that are on this page. So this is your redistricting website. So next steps, as we continue to work through this, we are having another public information session on October the 8th. That's the key date for you as members of the public to look at and mark your calendars. We will be on site at that public information session at 6 p.m. So keep an eye out for communications with that. And that's when we will actually have options to share with you, showing where communities are going to be in different options to populate the 3 new elementary schools. After that public info session, Public Advisory Committee 3, and then like I said, we'll be presenting our recommendations on the 9th of November and a school board vote on December 14th. So that's all I have for a presentation. So if you have not entered any questions and you want to enter any questions, like I said at the beginning of the webinar, there is a Q&A button. You can type in any question that you want in there, and that's something that we will take a look at. Um, we do have a couple of questions here, and I'm going to go ahead and go through these. Um, a question is, are you also thinking about those kids that will have to be moved to a different school for 1 year with all new kids just for that 1 year when they have been going to that school since kindergarten? And so this is a very common question, and it's a tough one in Troy. But what sometimes school districts offer students who are the rising fourth grade, I guess in this case, because the schools are converting to fourth grade, may have the opportunity to stay at that existing school. Um, this is a challenge in Troy because the district is actually reimagining or reconstructing schools, including the grade configuration of the schools. They're going from K5s to K4s, and they're consolidating. So some schools are coming offline entirely. But this is the term that this is referred to as grandfathering and allowing students to finish out their final year. Um, I don't, I'm not sure if the district is anticipating to do that or not. Superintendent Piper, do you have any comments on that?
Sure, I have a few comments on that. First of all, I would offer that we do recognize that it periods throughout our district, students do transition from one building to another. So we certainly make great efforts to make that transition as easy as possible for our students. For example, all of our buildings offer open houses to get our students and our families comfortable with them. We do a kindergarten staggered start at every elementary building. We have a freshman focus day for ninth graders only at the high school. But I would also add that when we do create our new district lines, it's not like one student only will be left behind at a school or will have to move to a different school. Again, planning blocks mean that students in neighborhoods will move together to new buildings. So it's not like they'll be alone. Um, Finally, to your point, Matthew, about can we grandfather some students in? We don't know that yet. That's something that we can look at. I think that we would have a very limited capacity to do that. But we do currently have open enrollment. One of the questions we get asked often is, are we going to continue to have open enrollment? The answer to that is yes. We will continue to have open enrollment. Now, how does that work? Every summer, early summer, late spring, we get applications for open enrollment. We hold on to those until we understand what the current enrollment for each grade level, each classroom, and each building is going to look like. And then we understand and know how many students we can absorb through open enrollment. And when I say open enrollment, that's not just students from outside districts to Troy City Schools. It's also students within Troy City Schools. So we will continue to offer open enrollment to the capacity that we can without overloading our schools. Finally, I would say, in addition to all the things I just described that we do to help students acclimate to a new building, talk to us. Each student is different. So if students need extra time, if they need extra support, we are more than happy to do that. We want to make sure all of our kids have a smooth transition to our new buildings, which, by the way, are going to be some great new learning environments for our kids.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Another question is, can you help us understand the planning horizon for these schools? Specifically, how many years of projected growth are you anticipating they can accommodate before additional building capacity, expansion, or potential rebuilding would be needed? Um, I'll start, and then if Chris may have some other comments on this, but
Sure.
as we estimate enrollment, we always try to be as proactive as possible. So we have, in our experience in working through this, we have a good eye for looking at where there may be bubbles and waves in enrollment as students might age through the system. We're using current enrollment as the basis for our estimation of enrollment for the schools. But with that said, we always try to, like I was mentioned earlier, there's 92% is going to be the amount of space on average if you looked at if all the students went to one school in the district. So as we model options, 92% is kind of our benchmark for what we're trying to target each elementary school to be at. But with that said, there's a lot of growth in different areas of the district. So we may actually bring that utilization down in an area that has a higher growth potential so that they can absorb students from new developments. This was a question that was asked at the Public Advisory Committee as well. And another thing that a point to make is as you look at new subdivisions being built, yes, that does bring in families and children into the district, and that is going to be sort of an add into your enrollment for your schools. But you also have to remember that in addition to new home construction, there's a lot of things going on in the existing housing stock in your district. Homes are being bought and sold, or some households that have kids right now are aging. Those kids, everyone's getting older. We're all getting older. And as kids age out, many times the household stays put. And so they what we call empty nest. So making sure that we not only look at new home construction and people coming in, but also factoring where there may be some loss in number of students in different communities as communities age out and empty nest. So we're looking at housing, current enrollment data, and then we're also anticipating the district also has an enrollment projection information to help us kind of be as proactive as possible as we work through building a recommendation or plan that holds for as long as it can. Chris, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I'll add. I know it's hard to understand when you drive around town and you see all the new homes being built, but when you look at our enrollment, again, one of the first steps in a building project with the state of Ohio, who is our partner in this, is that they do a population study. So they've collected a lot of data. They've spoken with city and county planners. They've spoken to developers. They look at current enrollment and they also project that out. They project that out for what's happening in Ohio, what's happening in the Midwest, what's happening in Miami County. And that projection, as well as the enrollment that we see, indicates that our enrollment is very steady, actually has a very slight decline over the past 10, even 20 years. And we see that with the studies that have been done. Also, we see that with our current enrollment. Like, for example, our three smallest grade levels at this point are kindergarten, first, and second grade. We see bubble classes come through. Our enrollment tends to bounce between 340 to 300 students. Currently, K1 and 2, all three of those have below 300, just below it, but they have below 300. So we're not anticipating growth. However, if we saw that, we typically would see students shift from one area of the district to another, not necessarily coming into our district from outside. So we could, again, down the road, redraw lines if necessary. And if the community did grow and our enrollment did go up, the buildings are designed in such a way that we could add on to the buildings, not for no cost, of course, but for as minimal a cost as possible. So all those things have been taken into consideration, but I'm very confident that our buildings will serve us well for a good long time.
Another question. After the redistricting is approved, when will the plan be implemented? So the plan is it's planned to be the new redistricting is planned to take effect fall of 2027. So that would be next fall is when these boundaries are anticipated to take effect. Another question about that, will the schools that are finished by January be used for the second term or spring, or will no one use the school until fall 2027?
Yep.
Chris, would you like to comment on that?
Sure, I'll address that one. So it is our goal to have North and East Elementary ready for use by Christmas break. That is our goal. That is an aggressive goal. Um, we hope to achieve that. We're not sure yet if we're going to hit that target. That target could be moved back to spring break, for example. However, the answer to that would be, make sure I understand the question. We would hope to use both North and East Elementary for the end of this school year, for the second half of this school year. And the reason that we want to do that, whether that's a December move or a spring break move, we hope to do that so that we can tear down the current buildings, finish the parking lots, the site work, and get everything ready so that for August of 27, everything is done on those two sites. The other two sites, west and south, will both be ready for August of 27.
So, Chris, to further clarify that, the boundaries that we're anticipating or that we're working
Yeah.
on, say this if this winter or say January, when the building is ready to be moved into,
Yeah.
will it just be the students that are current, like at the current
Yes.
Cookson, will go into East?
Yes, that's correct. I should have clarified that. We won't combine students in those two buildings. We will simply move students from Hook Elementary into North and from Cookson into East so that we can finish that site work. So yes, whenever that move happens at the end of the school year, those students in those two buildings will be occupying a building that's has much more capacity than just them, but we won't add that capacity until the following August.
Okay. Um, the last question that we have here is, will the number of bus routes increase? Will that mean more buses in the fleet?
We don't know yet. We think that if that happens, it should be minimal. So one of the things we have to do, the reason we have to do this redistricting work now, um, so that we can begin once it is finished, once the board has voted and decided what our attendance zones are, then we have to recreate all of our bus routes. We know that's a significant amount of work ahead. We'll have ample time to do it, but we will have to start from scratch with our bus routes and redo those. Um, it's hard to say. We haven't done new bus routing in a considerable amount of time. I mean, starting from scratch. We've tweaked them over time, but it's probably time for us to do that from scratch. And we don't know yet if that will create additional routes at all. I think we're going to gain some efficiencies, but if it does, it would be very minimal.
Another question, will you also be considering the new traffic at South Building? Currently, there is no stoplight at 25 in Swales. Is there anything being considered?
Yeah, it's being considered. We're actually in discussions with the city and the county. We've done traffic studies. We've looked at that data, and we're looking at both the Peters Swales intersection as well as the Swales 25A intersection. No decisions have been reached on that quite yet, but that is something that we are currently studying and considering in partnership with the city and the county.
So I'm going to give just another 10 seconds or so to see if a question comes through. That's all the questions that we have at the moment. Here we go. We have another one here. So last call for questions. If you guys have questions, please go ahead and enter them. So another question is, would the start time be different at the K4 building and the 5-6 building?
I think that's extremely likely. Again, we won't know the final answer to that until we do our bus routing. But I would anticipate that the 5-6 building will probably be on our secondary schedule. So meaning that students in grades 5 through 12 would ride the earlier bus routes and be released from school earlier, and students in K through 4 would have the later bus routes as they currently do. I anticipate that, but it's not a final firm answer until we do our routing.
So this presentation is also being recorded, and we are having this live stream so that we can record it. When this presentation is over, we're going to compile this and post this on our webpage. So please tell anybody that could not attend the meeting or the webinar that they can go on the website. I imagine around Monday, it's probably going to be on there. But we'll put the YouTube recording of this public information session, including the Q&A and everything there for you guys' benefit. But that's all I have. I mean, I just want to say thank you for your time this evening. We look forward to working with you in the public on this important process. And is there anything, final goodbyes you'd like to say, Superintendent Piper?
Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, I want to remind everyone that this redistricting work is extremely important, but we're going to have three identical elementary buildings. They are literally carbon copies of each other, the floor plan. All of them are going to use the same curriculum. All of them are going to have highly effective teachers. Again, we're going to keep planting blocks in neighborhoods as intact as possible. So we should all be excited. This is going to be a thing we have to get through with this redistricting, but we should all be excited for what the learning experiences for our kids are going to be in those new buildings. It's going to be great. I've been able to see the buildings. I saw one today, and they're going to be such an improvement over our current situation. I would also reiterate for everyone to stay tuned for future information. There are, again, opportunities in the future for you to stay involved, stay engaged, ask questions. And I know Matthew mentioned that form that's on the website. You are welcome to use that form for your feedback, for your questions. I would also encourage you to reach out to us. We have a phone that in central office. You are welcome to call that number and ask a question. You're also perfectly welcome to reach out via email with any questions you have. We want to be transparent. We want to make sure people have answers. So please reach out when you have them. But again, as Matthew said, thank you to everybody for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.